Raising boys versus girls. What's
The
been
girls are the
challenge?
hardest. The
Some-
girls are the hardest because they're a little more manipulative. They're smart.
How different is it, raising boys versus girls? What's
The
been
girls are the
challenge?
hardest. The
Some-
girls are the hardest because they're a little more manipulative. They're smarter. You know, the child inside the womb,
Thought I was recording. Back again, y'all. We live. Welcome back to Zay's Reception channel. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. And if you, let's just get right into it. Today we're gonna be talking about Terrence Howard and with his his biggest fear of raising his daughter in today's time is.
moment that the woman's belly recognizes.
How different is it, raising boys versus girls?
If you want to watch the whole interview, the link is in the description. Please like, subscribe, and comment so that we can build this channel.
What's
The
been
girls are
challenge?
the hardest. The
Some-
girls are the hardest because they're a little more manipulative. They're smarter. You know, the child inside the womb, the moment that the woman's body recognizes the little girl, about 3 months of gestation, it floods it with estrogen. And so it causes these connections between the left and right hemisphere, almost 3 to 5 times the connections from what I've read that men have. You know, men have this myopic thing, see this, go and do it. But girls contemplate everything. So the girls are so much smarter naturally than the men, and they learn how to manipulate. They learn to cry, they learn the smiles, they learn all of that. And then they're gullible because they think they've mastered men by mastering manipulating daddy, and they go out and they try and do that into the world. So letting my 2 older daughters go. I watch my daughters now, and I'm scared to death because of the karma. Because I know the things that I did to women when I was growing up, stuff I wouldn't want somebody doing to my daughter. That's just the reality. We don't, like me and my wife, we talk, and she's like, I would love to make love. I would love to make love. I said, nobody's going to be sitting there talking about, you are so beautiful, singing that while they're making love. I said, it's more of an aggressive act in some way, and maybe it's the things that I've watched. But
Singing while making love.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to visualize. Man, you think some of these R&B guys could pull it off like Kevin Campbell or Keith Sweat or
but
something?
nobody's doing that.
That's impossible to be able to do it.
You're not.
That's just who doing it. That's weird. That's weird as hell.
What? I'm going to talk to my wife. I'm going to try it this weekend.
I try.
What a task.
I try it, but
I mean, your voice is going to crack, though, no?
Yes, figuratively, the singing.
Imagine how out of breath you be.
The
Rob, what do you think? Are you thinking about it? Like, is this a challenge for you as well? Can you sing?
No, but it's not the singing. It's not the singing, but it's the, it's the foreplay, and that's something that I have to learn to do. The foreplay is the love making,
Right.
But then when you get to the penetration, that's a different kind of act. That's a testosterone.
Oh, baby. Ooh. Imagine that.
Yeah, that's
Intense.
Yeah, there's no Keith Sweat playing in the back of your head. There's none of that. There's
No music.
Joe Cochran.
Nothing.
The dun rubbing it. So it's that balance. Men have this expectation because I watched a bunch of porn growing up. So I had an unnatural expectation of what should have taken place inside of lovemaking. So I've had to learn, or trying to learn, how to make love in an honest way, in a loving way.
Honest way.
In a loving way, not in some.
So you openly talk about that with your girls?
I had to talk to my girls about, do you know how many women I've had encounters with that if I bumped into them today, I wouldn't know their name. I wouldn't know their face. I was like, do you want to be like that for somebody? Because men have game, and I hope that that's enough. But karma karma doesn't allow that. My daughters probably end up having to deal with the same thing that I did to women, you know. So the karma.
Does that scare you?
Yes, it does. But it actually sobers you, you know.
Wow. And you know, the other day we went to one of our friends, his daughter, which is kind of like my niece. We're together all the time. She's got a first boyfriend. So she's in college. He flies in with her, and they bring her over to our house, and we're having dinner, and we're playing a game, and I'm watching him. And I'm like, this guy is nice, because the dad is a little bit of a brilliant guy, very technical. He has a side to him that he could be an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And he was too soft, like he can be pushed around. Do you sit there and think about, like, you know, daughters typically date their fathers, you know, date a man like their fathers? Is that what scares you? Like they could date you?
Yes. And I know how manipulative I was. You know, my uncles were pimps. So I had a different understanding of how you dealt with women. Now, that was the pimp that I played in Hustle and Flow.
Too natural.
Too natural. You have to learn not to. You don't. I've got this rule. Like when Satan asked Jesus to turn stone into bread to feed himself, I took from that. You do not turn stone into bread to feed yourself. You don't take a gift that's been given to you, you know, for selfish purposes. So if I had the proverbial gift of gab, it wasn't to be used to talk somebody into a threesome, something I wouldn't want somebody talking my daughters into. But I've done that, you know, in the growing up stages. And that is something that it hits you. It constantly comes back. It constantly comes back. And that's the hardship of raising daughters over raising sons, you know. But nowadays you have to worry about, you know, sons being overly aggressive and getting killed, you know, because the men in my family are very aggressive, you know, in dealing with authority. So girls scare me, though, the most. Hi, everyone. My name is Terrence Howard. I'm an actor. But
That's not why girls scare me the most. They scare me the most because they were brazen. These boys is not tough like he's saying they is. These boys is soft. A lot of them raised by their mama, and you can tell by their mannerism. But nah, I definitely am afraid of this world for the little girl, but not because, you know, she's soft or anything, or the world gonna treat her some type. But these girls going hard. They ain't got. I feel like a lot of them, they just be doing shit. Just do anything just to do it for real, for real. And that ain't it. I mean, a lot of his followers, it ain't too many women that lead. Even ones, some of them playing leading roles, and really they following off some man, but getting ideas from some man. Like there's some independent women out here that ain't even getting no kind of light. But that's what happens to the good ones.
Did you enjoy doing Iron Man?
We ain't talking about that. We ain't here for that today. Let's go back. Let's go back. But yeah, y'all. I would say my biggest, I would probably be more afraid about a little girl growing up in this world because of the consequences behind things. They'll try stuff before the boys will. I don't know about nobody else's boys, but my boys is pretty much straight now. My little girl get in trouble every day. Not exaggeration. If you know me, you know. She get in trouble every day. Doing stuff that has no meaning. She's extra smart. But she do stuff that has absolutely no purpose. I want to dive into this. There's no such thing as death thing. There's a lot of conspiracy theorists out here that would like to.
How do you deal with your mortality? How do you deal with your mortality? Does it mess with you? Or are you accepting it? Are you cool? You know, we just saw recently, is it James Van Der Beek that we lost from Dawson's Creek, and he made a video about getting closer to God. I'm sure
Eric
you saw
Dane.
Eric Dane, Robert Duvall.
Yeah.
And I saw a video of Robert Duvall back in the days of him doing an interview about Godfather and Marlon Brando and how opinionated he was about the role. But how do you deal with your mortality?
I recognize that there's no such thing as death because the energy, the wave crests up and then it drops into a trough and then it reforms up again. But even when it drops in a trough, it's still there. But it's just an unseen part of it. There's no real death. Everything that comes from us ends up still feeding the next thing, and all living things feed off of living things. So it's a transitional process. And like when I met my wife, it felt like her and I had been looking for her for 1,000 lifetimes and didn't know that I had been looking for her. I felt eternity at that moment. And knowing that, okay, yeah, this is starting to crack. The seams are starting to be seen in this. It means in a minute I get to relax again. I get to go back to sleep. And then when I'm reborn, and my philosophy is everything goes from positive to negative, breathing in and breathing out. So the next lifetime, I believe you end up as a male. The older we get, what happens? Our testosterone drops, our estrogen levels rise, our prostate, which has the same fibers or tissue that the uterus has, it begins to swell. And like women that typically go through their period and all of that, our bodies, when we lose our testosterone, is slowly becoming more effeminate. Naturally, we get older, we got to try not to grow boobs as men. We get softer and all that. So I think in the next lifetime, you don't breathe in twice without breathing out once, so you go from masculine to feminine.
So you think next lifetime you're going to be a woman?
You have to go into the feminine side.
You really believe that?
Oh, my goodness. That's the only way there would be equanimity. Otherwise, you can't breathe in twice or three times without breathing out once. It has to be the ebb and flow. The cloud moves forward a little bit, then the cloud takes a step back, and then it pushes two forward, and then it takes a step back. So that equanimity, I think, allows for karma to take place, because what we've done in this lifetime as males will be done to us in the next lifetime as females. And sooner or later, you learn how to be extra medium and stay right in the center and not do too much.
You really believe this?
Honestly.
When did you come to this conclusion?
Maybe about 10 years ago. 10 years ago. Just looking.
What prompted it?
Just looking at the conversion of electricity into magnetism. Electricity does the same thing. It's always seeking that higher pressure condition. And when it gets to the very center, like it comes in through the North Pole and through the South Pole, and when it gets to the center of the Earth and has no place left to go, and it keeps still trying to spin right, and there's no room for it, so it's forced to spin to the left.
When this man sounds crazy, it sounds like a foreign language. But he's also the same one that made that patent at, 37 something companies? Don't quote me on this, but I think it's like 37 companies took his patent and used it, including Jeff Bezos and Amazon. And you name the company, most of them got a patent with his name on it. Where they use a patent with his name on it to create a lot of stuff. From cell phones to different technologies. Terrence Howard, smart dude, but we don't know what he's talking about. But I guarantee you, look into the shit, this nigga is A1 and on point.
And it comes out as radiation, as magnetism at the equator.
What he's saying makes sense because we are electricity, like we are electrical beings, non-lethal beings.
That's just the natural process. And if elements do the same thing, they start off lithium as a +1 and you get into the next octave. At the very end of it, it's made as fluorine on this side, +1 and a -1. And you go into the next octave, the fluorine, which was the mate for lithium, now in the next octave, that fluorine becomes sodium. It goes masculine. And then that sodium bonds with chlorine, and in the next octave, the chlorine becomes potassium. So it's going from male to female, and if as above, so below, and if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is equal to C find the common factor and multiply and divide. So if we're made up of all these elements, these chemicals that's doing these things, and consciousness comes as a result of these interactions, then the entire universe must take this same walk. If one is doing it, the one thing that everything is based on, if the foundation, if this is how the foundation moves, I'm sorry, the boat is going to move according to how the seas move. And that's all we are, boats or waves on this thing of the universe popping up. But we still have to follow that path.
Was this prompted 10 years ago by you having man boobs and you said, maybe this is what's happening to me? Is that kind of like, is that like, hey, I used to have muscles up here. I used to be able to flex.
No, I think it started with a friend of mine was having prostate issues.
How old was he?
He was only 60, and he was having serious prostate issues. And I began studying what the prostate is like and, trying to find a solution for him. And that's when I realized that the testes ultimately pull up and become ovaries, and the prostate becomes the uterus. And in the feminine side, the uterus drops down and becomes the prostate. The ovaries drop down and they become testicles. The clitoris becomes the penis. All of that stuff, it's just an in and out process. The universe is very simple. It's not complicated. Now we can throw all these other things, like you throw religion in there, and it tells you that you're going to die and then you're going to float up into the heavens. But when have we seen that happen? How does that fit with the sustainability of our ecology, of our environment, of our universal flow? There's always a back and forth. How is it that a male god had a male son without a feminine counterpart of as above, so below? Those are the things we follow, these myths or religious understandings that we've been taught without questioning them. Without question. If somebody said, oh, I had a dream today and an angel showed up and told me to do da 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 da, most people would look at them like they were insane. But most of our faith is based off of someone that had an interaction like that. But it was told to us by someone with authority, our mother, our father, and it was told to them by someone with authority. And we give that authority, and wherever they got that information, whether it's from the Hebrew Bible, whether it's from the Quran, whether it's from, the ancient texts of the Veda, we believe it based upon the authority that someone else has put in it. But many things we haven't questioned for ourselves. Hi, everyone. My name is Terrence Howard. I'm an actor, but in the field of science also. So if you would like to connect with me, you can connect with.
What he's saying is 100% true. I don't know nobody that questioned. A few people question the Bible, but I don't know too many people that question it. God gonna burn us up. God gonna do such and such. Not too many people question it. They just scared of it. They just like, oh shit, we all going to hell if we do wrong. But sin is inevitable. You just gotta, part of repenting is feeling bad about it and not doing it again. You gotta try not to do that again.
Because she wanted to be an actress, and I thought if I became an actor, I would get her affection. I would, because she doted over my younger brother Antonio and wanted him to be an actor. So I thought if I became an actor, she would, I would get that love from her.
What did Antonio end up doing?
He's a contractor now.
He's a contractor.
Yeah, and it's practicing witness.
Practicing witness.
Yeah, he's
good for him.
He's maintained.
Good relationship, you guys?
Yeah, we have a great relationship. But
are 11 of you guys all close?
Most of us are.
Great.
We there's a lot of communication, but then the younger ones are kind of getting their own thing out there. I don't have as much in common with my brothers anymore because I'm not a witness, and they're still trying to, proselytize in a way, and I'm trying to open their eyes to. Let's look at some of the statistics, some of the facts. from the scriptures. If every word is supposed to be the word of God, if you find one mistake in there, then you've got to throw the entire thing out. You have the entire thing becomes questionable.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I'm not questioning the divinity of God, but I do question how we've been taught in our belief systems. I think our belief systems, it's time to raise them and take the allegories that we can, but we need to start basing things on actual fact.
So you going into Hollywood, at what age did
So with that, I do feel like we was taught a lot of stuff to control us and to make us think things that are not, and that's part of controlling. But for the most part, yeah, he's telling the truth.
you get the first job? How did you
In
get
my
into it?
opinion,
First job I got was on the Cosby Show. I went to Barry Moss's casting agency because my brother Antonio was invited to come in there, and then he couldn't go because he was in Cleveland. I was in New York at the time, and I went in there and I got the job on the Cosby Show.
Is that it, Ron?
I
No,
don't think
that's
no, that
Living
was
Single.
Living Single. They cut me out of the show.
Oh, they cut you out of the show. Did they really? Like,
They
there's
cut me
no
out.
scenes of you in it?
They cut me out of the show because I was just a friend of Theo. I was playing ping pong and all of that, and I was so hurt by it. And I called my great grandmother, Minnie Gentry, who was an actress who had been on the Cosby Show. And I asked her, I said, I feel like I need to go talk to Cosby because Cosby had told me that he liked us together. And I hadn't talked to Barry Moss in 3 weeks or whatever. And so I went up to Cosby's room, went to the Kaufman Astoria Queens, Kaufman Astoria Studios, and had made friends with everybody inside of the lobby, So they let me in thinking I was coming in. And I waited outside of Cosby's door, and I said to him, when he showed up, he was like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, I just love to talk to you for a minute. And he invited me into his room, and he said, so what's on your mind? I said, I watched the show last night. And he was like, good, good, good. He said, I said, but they cut me out of it. He was like, yeah, it happens. Yeah, it happens. I was like, but nobody told me that it was going to happen. He's like, you didn't, your agent should have told you. I was like, oh, I don't have an agent. He's like, oh, okay. I was like, but well, you said that you liked us together and you were going to have me back. I haven't heard anything from anybody. And he took a minute and looked at me. And he was like, well, it could happen, but it also can't happen. And I'm like, well, what I did is I told everybody at my school that I was going to be on the show. I was in college at Pratt Institute, and I had them come and watch the show, and then I wasn't there, and I was embarrassed. And he said, well, in this business you learn you don't tell somebody you're in something. You let somebody call you and tell you they saw you. And then he said to me, he said, but that's just how this business is. And I said, well, you know what? I'm a man just like you. Here's this 19-year-old boy that takes another moment at Disneyland. I said, I'm a man just like you. I eat, piss, and I crap. But the way you're talking to me feels like I'm an insignificant worm,
You said that.
Yeah, I said it.
And how old are you at?
I'm 19. I'm 19. And I never told anybody about this conversation. And I said, but if this is how the business is, I don't think I want to be a part of it. And he said, that's a choice you got to make. Well, I leave there. And Barry Moss will never take my call again. And then maybe 7 years later, I bump into Malcolm Jamal Warner on a set, and he was like, yo, I heard about you having a conversation with Bill Cosby, and I was completely in the wrong. I didn't get disrespectful with him, but I was in the wrong because I needed to have an agent. I didn't need to come in.
So you're taking responsibility.
Oh, I did that. But Cosby, years later, he called me, and because the rumor had got out there, thinking that I had been blackballed because of Cosby, and he said, I would love for you to go on the radio and tell them that I didn't do this. And I was like, I don't know if you did or didn't, but you weren't in the wrong that time. Same thing happened with me and Joe Silver. I'm doing the Brave one. And we're at the Venice Film Festival, and some reporter out of nowhere gaslights me. And he says to me, he's like, why isn't your name above the titles with Jody? And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, why isn't my name above the titles with Jody? So I started making calls as if that was my right. And it wasn't. And then Joe Silver came and had a conversation with me. He's like, the reason your name isn't above the titles is because you're not the star of this thing. It's Jody. And if you win, if you get nominated for an Oscar, it's going to be for supporting actor. It's not going to be for best actor. And I was like, okay, thank you for telling me that. Now I understand. But you have to remember, I'm a man just like you. And if you ever talk to me in that way again, I'm going to knock your teeth out your mouth.
You said that.
This is what I said. And then I have to fly back on the private flight with him.
I dare you to let me build you a completely free e-commerce.
Y'all think he said it? Y'all think Lucius Lyon said that? Maybe.
And Susan Downey is his producing partner on that. And then maybe 8 months later, I lose Iron Man. And I'm sure that all of those things played their part. But I got gaslit. He did the right thing in coming and talking to me. But I responded in this aggressive manner instead of being cool about and understanding that, you know, you get what's supposed to come to you.
Tough thing to admit to, though.
Oh my
you're in a
God.
business where it's image. It's so you're to take so yours. So what? How could you have done it differently?
Oh,
If you go back.
I would have just let it pass with him asking, you know, shouldn't you be above the titles? Well, if I should be above the titles, I would be. You know, you are where you're supposed to be. Now I understand that. Shouldn't you be with that girl right there? Yeah, if that was my girl, should I wither in despair because a woman be so fair? Is she fair to me? A girl may seem as fine as can be, the most beautiful thing you ever did see, but if she ain't mine, what the F I care how fair she be? That position above the title wasn't mine. I didn't need it.
How important is it in Hollywood? How often do actors say, "Wait a minute, why am I number two? I was number how number." Is it a very important?
Yeah, well,
thing
it shows it's still the classes. You know, I'm above this, I'm below this. You know, and right now I don't care where I'm at on the call list. I just want to perform the best that I possibly can. I've grown up now, but the mistakes I made back then, oh my God. I'm the one that put myself in the doghouse. Other people didn't do. There was a game. There's a way there's procedures to the game. If you don't follow the procedures, you get out of it. And I did not know how to control my anger at the time. I didn't know how to control my mouth. You know, I kept getting in my own way. When we were doing this movie Boycott, and Jeffrey Wright is sitting there, we're playing chess with each other right before he's got to go in, and I've got my pawns, 3 pawns set up here, but I haven't been able to castle. I'm trying to castle, but I can't get around there, and I've got a bishop that's still blocking blocking me from being able to castle, and he dropped his rook down, and checkmated me, and he said, "Right there is your biggest problem. You won't get out of your own way." He said, "The cameraman was watching you, and he's seeing you from this angle, and he looks good like this, and he could do this, that, and the other." But he said, "But you won't do it because you won't get out of your own way." And getting out of my way then was I had a gold ring that I was determined to keep on. And I was like, I always wear this. And it's not the character. I was like, but I always wear this, and da-da-da-da-da. And I was in my own way about something.
I was in my own way. That's when Saul taught me. Yeah, I bet he'll whoop somebody's ass.
That was unimportant. I had forgotten, and you grow up and you listen. When I had a meeting with Denzel once, and he told me, he was like, "Look at your hands, man. You're always like this. Your fists are all balled up." He said, and all these producers want to do is they're trying to open your hand and so they can put money in it. But you won't do it. You keep your hands all tight like this, and you're blowing it. And this is 20 years ago.
Holy moly!
This
What
is
kind of
20 years ago.
advice? So 20 years ago, were you 20 years ago would be what? 2006, so 20 years ago.
It was right before, it was maybe about 20, 28, 20. It was right before I did Hustle and Flow. It was right before, because I ended up going back into the Chitlin circuit. I was no longer being supported by the studios again, because
How
I
many
was so
times did this
aggressive.
happen? How many times did
At
this?
least 8 times. I've had a number of opportunities, and you know, but my aggression, my need to be a man, you ain't gonna talk to me like that, instead of learning how to diffuse and to walk away and to smile. Okay, this isn't your day, or this isn't my road right now.
Who plays a role in an actor that obviously is very talented, obviously is an A lister, obviously it's a guy that can get up there and make the few hundred million. Who typically plays the role of saying, "Hey, listen, let's pump the brakes"? Who's having a
Manager,
tough con?
good
Was
man.
your manager somebody that knew how to manage
They
your
they
toughness?
didn't. Well, the people that were trying to manage me at the time were Benny Medina and people of that nature,
Mm.
and it's like they have a different agenda. They're walking a different walk, and I wasn't down for that, and I didn't have the ears to listen at the time. I just wasn't there yet. They could have. My parents talked to me, but I'd been beat up so much as a little kid because I was light skinned with green eyes in a black neighborhood, and they used to slap me and say, "Watch him turn red." And I had to learn how to fight at 13, 14. And once I learned how to fight, now I'm going to make everybody pay for what's happened to me. And that's what I realized I was doing. I'm just battling. I'm battling shadows from the past. You ain't going to punk me. And it's like I was punking myself. So that's the hardest thing, to get out of your own way, to recognize, oh, wow, this ain't even about me. Hi, everyone. My name is Terrence Howard. I'm an actor, but in the field of science also. So if you would like to connect with me,
Let me know what y'all think. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what kind of video you want to see next in the comments.